I finally did it. 3.5, probably 3 and some change years later, I finally did it. I have mentioned Isha a handful of times on this episode. Sorry, not this episode, on this show, quite a bit. I started dating her back in 2020, and this past Monday, which is the reason for why I did not release an episode last week. This past Monday, uh, March 11th, so whatever day this comes out, just backdate it to that. I proposed. I finally did it. Now, it's a strange feeling, like I'm not no way am I trying to make this negative in any point, but it's a feeling of high elation. You're pumped up on dopamine. Oh my gosh, everyone's so happy. And it's a strange feeling because it's like in this lifetime, you hope not to have too many proposals, right? Is that a general idea? Like, hey, I hope I don't have to either propose too many times or I hope I don't have to get proposed to too many times. Maybe it's some old school way of thinking. Maybe in modern days and in 5, 10 years, 20 years, it'll be more of a normal thing where people have 5 of these. You don't want to lose the high that it is. It's just like anything, right? You go have some fast food. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. You have it the next day. This ain't feeling too good. You have it 3 days in a row. Now I'm for sure sick. Anytime you have something that good that often, it loses its feeling, And when it comes to proposing, I will say, look, I was someone of the camp that I was like, oh, you know what? When I do it, it's going to be simple. Like I won't be that nervous. I'm going to be cool as a cucumber. I'm a pretty level-headed guy. I'm not too outwardly emotional. So when I do this, shit, I don't need no help. I got this. Sure enough, boy, oh boy, was I wrong. Boy, oh boy. Like, okay, look, leading up to it, here's one thing that I definitely, actually, honestly, each part of it, I underestimated. I underestimated how much work goes into ring shopping. I underestimated how much work goes into the process of doing that with your partner. Because in my head, it was such a strange feeling, right? Of like, oh, let's go do this ring shopping thing, and essentially, that this is going to happen, right? This proposal is going to happen. So there is like, you almost have the part of the proposing part. You actually have the part where the guy gets on a knee. It's so theatrical. This was my point of view before, where it's just like, oh, why do people even do this? Honestly, why do people even do this? You guys have already talked about getting married. You guys have already talked about how many kids you want. You go through so many of these conversations before the question of will you marry me even comes about. Shit, nowadays, people don't even say, will you marry me? All these signs, I don't know whether it's a save money kind of thing, but if you show up to someone's proposal and you'll see that, like, let's say they have a heart of rose petals around this little area, maybe a few candles, and they'll never have the letters, will you marry me? Sorry, the words, will you marry me? Now it just says, marry me. Isn't that wild? Like, there is no, and this was my quarrel with proposing in general, where it's like, there is no surprise to it. But then after going through it myself, you actually realize the surprise that it is. And I will say, when I initially left the house, and I'll tell you guys in a second how it all went down. When I left the house, my stomach was in absolute knots. I really didn't think this would happen. I thought, okay, I may get a little nervous, just a couple butterflies, like as if you were about to go up on stage and do a speech, do a dance, whatever. Just, some of those normal butterflies. But when you're sitting in a car driving around and music isn't playing and you're just driving as fast as you freaking can and you're ignoring all calls, you're not looking at your phone and you're just focused. Your stomach is in knots. You don't even feel like eating. You don't feel like drinking. That feeling doesn't just happen. And I'm not trying to get too cheesy with this, right? Like, I will say it was like going to a club. You wait in line at this club and you're like, damn, I can't wait to get in. Eventually, I will get into this club. For now, I'm seeing all the snaps of people in this club and I'm like, damn, they're having fun. It looks like they're having a great time in there. The music's good. The women are attractive. The dudes are attractive. The alcohol ain't that bad. It looks like a fun time in there. But you know what? I'll wait. I'll wait in this line. And then eventually, sometimes people are just like, oh, this club ain't even that great. This club ain't even that great. We can go down the street to this place over here. Oh, hey, the bouncer said you wearing sneakers, so we won't be able to get in. Oh, okay, yeah, whatever. I didn't even want to go to this club anyways. That thinking is never right. Never, ever, ever right. Because as soon as you get into that club, all those snaps you saw, they were real. They were real. And I felt the same way about proposing, where I was just like, I don't see the excitement behind it. There are so many conversations that happen beforehand now where it's like, I know this person is going to say yes. But almost it's like, what's it called? A double-edged sword, catch-22, whatever metaphor or simile you want to use here, where it's just like, probably for good reason. Like a lot of relationships that start off pretty young, like let's say they get engaged 3 months in. Sometimes it's like, damn, have y'all even had any of those conversations? Have you guys talked about marriage, family values, whatever your list of criteria may be? Now, I have been someone that has always been a proponent of arranged marriage as well. I've always seen a beauty in, I will learn to love this person. Obviously, you don't really know a lot about the person, but this is also, like I said, a little bit of old school thinking, where it's like there is a North Star when you get into this relationship. When this guy and this girl come together, or guy, girl, whatever, don't cancel me, just relax. When this couple comes together and it's been arranged and they don't know each other, the only thing that really gets checked off is like, okay, we approve of this family. And same way the other way around. Now there will be this North Star. The couple will move to America, have kids, send the kids to college, and hopefully succeed in the American dream. Now that has changed quite a bit. Obviously, being a first generation, whatever generation American I am, everything changes. You're much more westernized in your approach. And honestly, even in those countries that regularly do arranged marriage, they have gotten much more westernized. The approach has changed everywhere. So in proposing, let's get into the story stuff of it. Originally, I wanted to propose on February 29th. I thought there was something cool about having nothing around like, we can only celebrate every 4 years. Nothing like that. But it was just something cool about having that date, a date that doesn't even exist in some years. Can y'all hear that car honking? Anyways, I want to do it February 29th, but then I'm a big procrastinator. And I put behind ordering the ring. Gotta order the ring. And I was going through Brilliant Earth because I had found this place in West Village in Dallas. And I was like, okay, the price ain't bad. I'm going to get something that looks like this. Luckily, I had one of her friends. No, I didn't have her at all. The friend actually helped me out tremendously. Anushka took her originally to ring shopping. So you get a general idea, right? Because Isha, in this scenario, she didn't really know what she wanted. Because if you don't aspire, if you don't really have an inclination of, I want this all natural, I want this carrot, I want this shape going into it, you don't really know until you actually start trying stuff on. So Anushka helped tremendously with that, where it was just like, okay, now you have a general idea. And then another friend, Hanali, took her ring shopping. Now, I thought this was my bad. I thought that was it. I thought, hey, you know what? Friends do it. And then they just send me details. And then I go do the transaction. That was wrong. I should have offered. My bad. So then eventually her and I go ring shopping. I get a general idea. I see some. I guess a quick shout out. We went to Vry. VRAI, however you pronounce that, I apologize. Right here in Beverly Hills, and the prices were about the same to Brilliant Earth. But something that I like in shopping, and I think probably a lot of people, is like when you physically see the tangible product, especially when you're spending that dollar amount where you're like, okay, you know what? I've touched it, I've seen it, I can approve of this, versus where you go through a third party and you haven't really seen what you're buying. And I was texting some third parties, but then I was just like, you know what? Forget this. I need to hurry this shit up. I ended up ordering it probably end of February. It doesn't come in till the first week of March. And then Isha was scheduled to leave town for a handful of weeks. So I was like, you know what? I got to do this now. I got to do this now. So we had plans for the weekend. She had to go to San Diego on Sunday. And I was like, should I do it when she gets back? Because we've already had the conversation, just like every other conversation, where it's like, this would be my ideal proposal / engagement. Because a lot of people, I think the normal cadence you'll see is you see a proposal and then that either already has all the friends and family there. And then either that happens or a proposal happens. And then the couple drives over to where all the friends and family are. Woo, big celebration. It's like a mini reception. It's like a party with no ties, like that party is probably one of the most fun parties. It's a smaller amount of people. You're super close friends. Feelings are at an all-time peak. It's a fun time. But in our scenario, we didn't want that. And I was perfectly good with it. So my ideal place would have been somewhere in Malibu. Nothing beachside. I don't like dealing with sand. Like even in thinking about where I would have a wedding, sand, I'm just not a big fan of sand. It gets too many places. For old people, it's hell to walk through. If you got a kid, you got to carry them because you have to have proper wheels on your stroller to get through the sand. I'm not a big sand guy. I do like going to the beach. I'm not a big sand guy when it comes to events like this. So I wanted to find like this patch of grass, just somewhere scenic in Malibu. Didn't really have time. Or maybe let's say I just didn't take the time to do it. So then the idea came, you know what? During this time of the year, the sun sets perfectly from an angle where you can see it on our balcony. So I'll do it there. Location has been set. Next up, so I got the ring, I got location, outfits, I'll just kind of wing that. And then everyone always talks about it. You gotta get her nails did. So this part was actually one of the more difficult parts because if you're a guy and you say, hey, we should go get our nails done, or hey, would you like me to pay for you to get your nails done? She already knows. She already knows. It already gives it up. So essentially, let me speed this up a bit. All in all, how I went about it is I basically set up an almost scavenger hunt where it was just note cards of instructions. So the first note card was, hey, you have a nail appointment at this place at this time. Here's my credit card. So then from that first note card, you kind of already know. I had left the house and I sent her like one last text message where I was like, hey, I won't be texting you again, but this note card was this envelope will be found on my desk. Please go read it now. And then from there, she ended up going to the wrong nail place, but that's a thing for another episode. Eventually, she gets back to the place. During that time where she was out doing her nails, I cleaned the whole balcony up, put out a new rug, made it presentable, put out some market lights, candles, all this stuff. Photographer, didn't have one. I set up a tripod just like this, and I recorded the whole thing. I was stressed a bit about finding someone because I was like, oh, should I get a drone? Should I get someone to do this and that? And then I was like, you know what? F it. Keep it simple and keep it pretty. Like put thought into it, but don't stress yourself out about things that ultimately won't make the biggest change in the event. So then she eventually comes back home. I propose. And just like that, Just like that, it happened. It went down. I did it. So then after that, since we did not have any plans afterwards, we didn't have plans to go see a big group of people. It was just like, hey, we have these dinner reservations. You're feeling elated. You're doing the FaceTime calls to the parents, the siblings, and then we avoided doing any friends the night of, except for the friends that I already knew that were kind of helpful with the process. Main people that I want to give a shout out to: Hanali, Natasha, and Asha, and obviously people that all played a factor. I'm sorry if I didn't name you. So we do all the FaceTime calls, and then we waited the next day. We were a bit hungover the next day, where it's just like it's slow. You slowly get into it because you're also working on a Tuesday, so you're doing some work, you're laying down, chilling, and then you do some FaceTime calls. All of that, and then you kind of start thinking about all the stuff to come. I've been talking about this for a fat minute. I just saw the time, and I'm at the 17-minute mark of just talking about this. So I'm definitely going to chop this up and hopefully just keep in the stuff that matters, or that is at least a little bit more entertaining. So you do the proposal. And just like I said, it's like you finally get into the club. And then I think on Wednesday night, so a couple days after, we just kick it. Take some gummies, have a couple drinks, and just kick it at home. You don't always have to do all the fanfare. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you have to, especially when it comes to something like a proposal. Execute things how you want to. I think both of us, coming from younger siblings, in addition to being probably more on the later end of our friend group of doing all of this, you kind of get that luxury. Of, oh, I don't have to do this grand thing. Everyone's already seen the magic trick so many times. And then I'm going to do the same trick and expect people to applaud me. I'm good. You know what? I'm going to do this trick my way, and let's see how it goes. So it was cool. And then the thought of kind of just like all the events that follow this. It is a pretty wild thing to think about. The level of commitment from, and look, I'm not trying to sound too cheesy about this. The level of commitment from that boyfriend-girlfriend step to, let's say, fiance. I don't know if it feels different from fiance to actually being married. It might be a 2% difference, but that's a big ass 2%. Because then you start thinking about all the events that follow. Being Indian, you have a bunch of stuff. You don't just plan a 50-person wedding, a little reception that follows that. You don't do that. You have to have this puja, then maybe another puja in another city. And then you also have to maybe go visit these people. And then you have to have 4 wedding events. And then you got to get court married. Like, there's a lot of things. And when you start thinking about that, and, we started having the conversation of, should we have an engagement party? And start inviting people? Invite the immediate, let's say, family and friends. We started listing it out, and I just started instantly getting stressed out. In my head, I was like, you know what? It'll be easy. Same thing as proposal, where it's like, oh, I'm not going to be nervous. And then next thing you know, you're nervous as shit. Throughout the process of all of it, I will say doing an early unveiling where it's like, this proposal is about to happen ahead of time, your nerves kind of dwindle down. So when the moment comes, you are nervous and you're very emotional, but you can at least speak. So same thing with finally realizing that emotion on the other side of the fence. You finally cross, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have this event, this event, this event, this event. Now remember, I said I took some gummies, but this is how I normally think. Pretty high anxiety, but it's just me. Where it almost feels like I've been to a handful of weddings, and a handful is being generous about it. I've been to a shit ton of weddings. A bunch of weddings, a bunch of proposals. Yeah, so I've been part of this movie for a long time. And so it almost feels like, and here's my last metaphor for the day, I think, where you're sitting in an audience and you're just watching this on a big screen, where you watch, everyone applaud the couple entrance, the dances, the outfits, all the families coming together. Wow, this is such a happy movie I'm watching. That couple must be ecstatic about what's to come or what they're going through right now. And then the thought of being that person about, oh shit, I'm going to have this audience now watching me up there do all this. It was a pretty wild idea that slowly started to just sink in. And what's strange to think about is like, I'm someone that does love the attention, right? Like I do love being on stage, doing this or that, whether it was dancing back in the day, telling jokes, emceeing. I think that's about it. Don't really sing. I liked the attention. I like entertaining people. Why do you think I'm talking to a iPhone in the abyss of an empty apartment? It's to entertain. But the thought of the wedding aspect where it's like all your family comes together because this is what they've been looking forward to. All those years leading up where they were like, hey, you know what? When is your wedding? When is your wedding? When is your wedding? You might have been getting annoyed, but for them, that is, an excuse. That is almost a milestone where it's like, damn, I used to change that dude's diapers. I used to change that little boy's diapers. That little boy that's 6'4", I used to change that dude's diapers. And now that man's getting married. It's a wild thought. So that thought slowly started to sink in. And then it's just like, damn, you know what? This is a much bigger process. And I did realize what it was because I have an older sister that got married, but it's just different when you think about it that all of this is happening for you.